And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect, which includes, well, how come the camera wasn't turned on at the very beginning? Well, believe it or not, there is actually a legitimate technical reason. It's because, at the moment, I'm the only one here. And because of that, well, Discord doesn't like to have the video on the entire time because it eats computrons. Apparently, there's a bandwidth thing because it's wasted bandwidth, and, well, that's kind of the way that it works. So for a little while, the camera's going to be turned off because that's just the way of things. Part of this is follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Tribble, and you can find me pretty much everywhere under that name. That's S-H-U-J-I-N. Hi, it's good to be with you. I know it's going to be a little bit weird just looking at my icon over there and not being able to see me gesticulating, but that's just kind of the way that it's going to be for the time being. Io is not going to be able to be with us. She has an item that needs to be dealt with. Brigid, well, at the moment, I'm not quite sure if Brigid's going to be able to show up. I'm guessing not at the moment, considering the information that she gave us last time about the new work digs that she's going to be going through, which includes a lot of caffeine, very likely. And I did get the word that Tech will be here, or is expected to be here, but is going to be running a little bit late. Such is, it's quite all right. Not to worry, things will be going the way that they're going to go, and, well, you've got me at the very least, so it's not a complete waste of time. Just a partial one. It's all good. It's all good. Of course, as always, I would like to invite everybody to be joining us as we record live over here on YouTube and, well, you know, help pad out the reason, we sincerely hope, because that's the way it's supposed to be. By the way, as additional, I did make a minor modification to my audio. So if things are sounding a little bit on the odd side from the way that they nominally would be, I apologize. I didn't exactly get the opportunity of testing it out because there's no easy way for me to do that. But we'll see how it works out. If you're joining us live, of course, be part of the live chat. As usual, this morning, Stephanie is there. Good morning. Nice to know that the UK is still there. And we, for what it's worth, have not yet sold Alaska with... I mean, I think that there's supposed to be some kind of a return policy with a receipt. I don't know if it's supposed to be a 2-week, 1-month return on any purchases, but hey, it is what it is. I suppose. I don't know how that's supposed to work. Alaska and all. We can talk about that later. And as far as to the pretty face comment, Stephanie, bless your little heart there. I don't know if it's little or it's nominal sized. I mean, you've still got enough of a heartbeat to be able to press the keys, so that's got to account for something. I don't know if maybe you need an eye exam, but hey, who knows? It's all good. It's all good. In any case, I will get things rolling over here and see what's going on. Stephanie also asking, did you see what the Alaskans thought of that idea in Anchorage at least? I did not get the opportunity. However, I did see that there were quite a number of odd flags that were flown, especially in hand, while I was up there. I don't know, green flags, I think is what they... Well, I mean, they would have been if you'd combined the blue and the yellow, so I'm not quite sure how that ended up working that way, but you know what? Everybody's happy. Fine. It's all good that way, I suppose. Any case, like I said, Tech should be here shortly, which means that I will have somebody to help me out with the horrible scopes, or at the very least, I should have somebody here for the horrible scopes. We will see how that plays out. In any event, I'll get everything rolling, and we'll kind of work from there. A sea of Ukrainian... you know what? I don't know which flags they were. All I know is that I saw Slava Alaska, I think is what I saw. I don't know. It's all Greek to me. I don't speak Greek, so it's going to be what it's going to be. How about I get started, because we'll see how it works. So your 5-minute freestyle starts right now. Capitulation is an interesting term. Now, I know that in language, especially in English, which is a very hyper-evolving language these days, which I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. It's a thing. But language, as we understand it, evolves. It changes. It morphs. It flows with the times, because what is common suddenly isn't, or maybe not exactly suddenly. Sometimes it takes a little while for things to change. Now, in this case, dictionaries, or pretty much any reference as far as to how language is utilized or described, is something that evolves along with it. But there are certain terms that mean pretty much the same thing over longer spans of time. And as that should be. There should be anchor terms over time. One of them is the term capitulation. And there are some people who don't really quite understand exactly what that means. And for some people, it changes. For others, it's pretty bedrock. But if you look it up in pretty much any reference, capitulation is simply giving up without a fight, in the middle of a fight. Now, I know that sounds kind of contradictory, because how can you give up without a fight if you're already in a fight? Well, think of it this way. Typically, in war, meaning between countries, there is an actual declaration of war, a law, if you will, that's passed, meaning the governing bodies have to come together and agree, yes, we are now at a state of warfare. Now, there are various different reasons why that has to be done. And I don't say has to be as in, it's really a good idea. No. Has to be done. Because if you do not have a formal declaration of war, there are certain things that can't be done. For instance, you can't press into service manufacturing for things. For instance, you could only ask your vehicle production plants to change from making passenger vehicles to making warfare vehicles. You could ask, and they could just say no. Or you could compel them under threat of law, in which case they would have to. It's not a great thing to do, but it's a possibility. Plus, it also typically frees up some kind of funds to go and do these kinds of things. But if you give up when a declaration is made from some other group, and you just surrender before you've even had the opportunity to get out there to fight, there are times when that's necessary. When you have an overwhelming force coming after you, and the only choice is phenomenal bloodshed and loss of life and abject suffering versus just agreeing not to be systematically killed or worse. Yeah, there's reason for that. It's honorable. But in the case of what's happened this past week, where the president, quote unquote, has met with another president, quote unquote, and one is absolutely a fascist, the other is elected to the position of power and authority, but is effectively a de facto fascist. Well, when one simply decides that they're going to capitulate to the authority of the other, well, that's just wrong. When there is no actual declaration of war, this is just wrong. This is fecklessness. This is someone who has no spine, no moral compass. Someone who is undeserving of the title, of the office, of the public trust. So, to borrow an expression, I asks you, do you give a fuck what color this moron's skin is? I couldn't care less whose skin it was. Any leader who behaved like this is undeserving and very likely is going to end up finding themselves, well, out of a job. One way or another. Of course, in the way that I think of things, I expect that it could come at any day. Basically because, well, if you're unhealthy, well, things happen. Mother Nature takes her course, and biology asserts itself. Sooner or later. Can't wait to see how that plays out. Stephanie commenting, the senile old goat met with the war criminal. Yeah. However, as far as to which president versus which so-called president I might have been referring to is, well, it's kind of hard to tell which one is which, wouldn't you think? To be told, I'm not sure that I can even tell you exactly which was which. I don't think really much matters, now does it? I'm hitting the wrong buttons because that's the way it is. I don't have tech here at the moment, but that's okay. I'll just go ahead and I'll do the horrible scopes myself because, well, times are tough and that's who I can afford right now. So it'll be time for the horrible scopes. Those of you that know your astrological sign, cool. If you don't, you can just make it up as you go along, find yourself a D12 and roll that one. If you need a D12, you can order one from the nice folks over there at Heart of the Game Fredonia because they still like me. I think. I haven't been there. I don't expect to be there anytime soon, but hey, drop them a message. Let them know that, we sent you. It's Heart of the Game Fredonia. Hail, hail, Fredonia. Home of the Blue Devil. I don't know where they're keeping the Mimic these days. I assume everything is good because I haven't seen anything in the news. I haven't exactly gone looking at the news recently, but I'm sure everything's fine. Everything's probably just fine. So I'm trying to get everything back into the swing of things. So I'm going to be seeing about challenging your understanding of reality because Lord knows we could all use that. So if you're going to have a problem answering these questions, it's okay. They're supposed to be tough to get through. So pop on your thinking cap and prepare for the hunt. Aries, for any of you that know anything about customer service, you'll probably know the answer to this, but let's let other folks stew on it a while. The normal question is this. If you build an idiot-proof system, will the world create a better quality idiot? Now, the problem becomes a Mobius strip of yes and no. If a better quality idiot beats the system, was it really idiot-proof in the first place? Or alternatively, if a better quality idiot beats it, was it just that it was impossible to build for that level of idiot? Therefore, your system was 100% perfect. So this week, we're not expecting you to build an idiot-proof anything. We are expecting you to try your best. After all, Santa's getting started on this year's naughty list. You don't want to be on that list again this year, do you? Taurus, we have good news, and of course we have bad news to go along with it. The good news is your imponderable question has already been answered. The question is, if people say it's the best thing since sliced bread, what was the best thing before sliced bread? Now, the bad news is that the answer was Betty White. So this week, can we all just agree that Betty White was 100 years old when she died? Look, we're all for truthfulness and accuracy here, but come on, we're talking about an international bright spot. in our collective lives. She deserved it. Gemini, we know how much you love math, so we're about to give you something to think about. The common thought is that the number pi is an unending decimal, likely running into infinite decimal places. But what if it's not, really? What if the number is really only about 100 places out, but our computized systems are just broken after that? Maybe there really is an end, but we rely too heavily on machines to find it, and it's their own shortcomings that have led us to believe in the infinite number conjecture. So this week, you know what you have to do now, right? You need to start calculating pi on your own, by hand. Don't worry, we're going to buy you like a ream of paper to work it all out with. Cancer Moonchild, in your collection of almost never used, we're guessing you have a classic 9x9 baking pan, maybe only used for making brownies. Which, fine, I mean, brownies are cool. We're going to suggest learning and making a potato pie in it. Now, after making this, could you get away with saying that you have achieved a real-life model of a square root? So this week, those of you who were math majors are groaning the loudest, but joke's on you. You won't be able to make one because you have no baking skills. Yet prove me wrong. Leo, we're giving you the lead question, the one that started this edition's reason for being. In the Western New York area, there are only 3 bridges that cross from the U.S. into Canada, 2 of which allow pedestrian crossing. The Peace in Buffalo and the Rainbow in Niagara Falls. Now here's the question. Could you cross into Canada via horseback at either of these 2 pedestrian bridges? So this week, imagine what it would be like for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police trying to cross over from the other side. Who do you even contact for the right answer? And, by the way, what was Tonto's horse's name? Everybody remembers the Lone Ranger's horse's name. What was Tonto's? Virgo, we're mixing advertising with your question, and not everyone's going to appreciate this one. It was once said, there's always room for Jell-O, as a way of suggesting that you should always have some in stock at home, because someone's going to want some. The answer? Whatever. The question is, why is there always room for Jell-O? Now, the simplest reason is because, the Jell-O is coming. So you eat less and save room for it. But maybe there is another solution. Literally. So this week, what if the reason is actually because Jell-O is mainly water? So you're just drinking, arguably, solid water. Try making some with coffee. Then freeze it. Then make iced coffee with it. And see how that ends up. Libra, your collection of vinyl albums is all well and good, but you're running into the same problem as everyone else. Needing to replace the stylus. So here's the problem. You're going to need to change out the stylus roughly, let's say 1,500 hours of playtime. That's at about $50 a hit. But you could just replace your entire record player with one from ELP Corporation of Japan that uses lasers to read the disc for about $13,000. So this week, if you think that you can run the numbers on this to figure out if it's worth the money, we'll remind you that you do not have all the info you're going to need. Have you taken into account the wow factor, or that it can't read translucent discs? How do you put a value on those variables? Think about this a while and keep your credit card in your pocket. Scorpio, there is a system in some tabletop role-playing games known as stealth. It's a simple concept. Can you get through some area without making any detectable sounds? There is also the question, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make any sound? Now, combine these two ideas. If a paladin wearing full chainmail armor leaves no witnesses behind, did they make any sound regardless of the dice roll? So this week, go to a Renaissance festival and ask to wear the chainmail headpiece. You want to work out? Try sneaking around in that. Sagittarius, some people have asked, what came before the Big Bang? And it's an interesting question on the face of it. So let's answer that question with a real-world analog to show you how you can answer it. Take a trip to the North Pole. Not a Santa's workshop, please. We mean the actual rotational tip of the Earth axis of rotation. Now, once you're there, how do you go more north? It is quite literally the same question. What's more north than north? And what's more before the start? So this week, honestly, I don't have anything written at this point because I don't even know how to make sense of the question and the answer at this point. So next time somebody asks you what's more north than north or what's before the Big Bang, what came before the Big, just say, I don't know, man. Capricorn, you've wanted to follow your childhood dreams, and we're proud that you've never forgotten what it was. We're also doubly proud that you've gotten all those little bits of knowledge that you could to make your dream a reality. But these days, we're not really sure if you'll be able to operate a side-of-the-road stand serving up mud pies on a bed of leaves. So this week, maybe, if you replace the actual mud with a slice of Mississippi mud pie and the leaves with leaves of mint, you just might have a dessert restaurant worthy of starting. Name it Forever Young and use only kid-themed menus. But no lead paint chips and salsa. Aquarius, this philosophical problem of the ship of Theseus asks, if you start with a ship and replace each plank one by one until no original planks are left, is it still the same ship? Now here's a different version of that. What if each of those planks are then used to make another ship, basically a clone of the original, until you now have two seemingly identical ships of Theseus? Is it ship of Theseus or ships of Theseus? I don't know. Are they both the original ship? Are neither of them the original? Is one the original but the other a fake? So this week, we can't answer this question for you because we don't even know. But it's going to make a hell of a Star Trek episode with Thomas Riker. Finally, my fellow fish Pisces, did you know that it used to be possible to listen into people's computer displays and recreate it with nobody being able to notice? When CRT monitors would operate, they threw off a bunch of electromagnetic radiation, so much so that it could be reproduced with striking clarity. Obviously, that necessitated means of preventing it in high-security environments, hence using mesh netting as Faraday cages inside each room that was set up. The problem with that was the problem of other radio waves that couldn't get through, like two-way radios. So this week, you're enough of a conspiracy theorist that you actually believed this, didn't you? Yeah, the problem is, what parts, if any, that I just named are actually true? You want to look it up, don't you? Yeah, go ahead, but your search engine of choice might rat you out. Maybe ask Archie, Veronica, or Jughead to help you out on this one. And those are your horrible scopes for this week. Remember, if you like what you got, cool, because I had to work extra hard on these for various reasons. But, of course, if you didn't like them, that's okay, too, because, I worked long and hard, and it is what it is. If you want a better or nastier one for your own site or someone else's, you could bribe me by letting me know, because I operate primarily on vanity. Or you can check out the Coffee page, coffee.com/Icarus the Lunar Garden. You can literally bribe me right there. I'll have these posted at the end of the week. Tumblr, Facebook, Coffee, Discord, BlueSky, because that's the way it means to bribe somebody to be nice about it. It's kind of the way it works around over here. This is episode 545 on the docket, Your Honor. You bet we're overwhelmed. Good criminy, man. There is so much stuff that has been going on in the news. It has been literally impossible for me to focus on any one of them. There are things going on that boggle the mind, make me upset. And truthfully, I'm not even totally sure where to go with some of this stuff. And that's part of the reason why it's going to be a little bit tough for me to get through some of this stuff, because I'm going to have to do it, live with you now and try to isolate some ideas in my head, all the while hoping I'd actually have some folks to help me out on this. Like I said, I know the tech will be here eventually. It's just a question of when, but I'll get around to it. The first one I'm going to deal with is dealing with the fact that, and we kind of touched on this last week, the fact that United States federal military is being, I'm not going to say deployed, but is being suggested to be available with the intent of using them domestically, which is simply against the law. Now, we know that the way of getting around that was to bring into play the state reserves, the state-bound militaries, to have them come out instead, because it's a lot easier to mobilize the state National Guards, because, each of the individual state guards are operated in each state, and they have their governors, their state governors, to direct them for what they are to be doing, what their mission is. And theoretically, the President of the United States has the ability, has the authority to federalize these forces, thereby making them effectively the army on national soil, which is what you're not supposed to be doing. Now, the biggest problem of this whole thing is that, as anybody who has studied anything about history would know, that this is what fascists do. This is what dictators do. They mobilize nearly unchecked power in the streets in order to quell anyone that wants to speak out, which, of course, is, well, it's against the law. It's unconstitutional, literally. The First Amendment to our Constitution here in the United States is, well, part of it, of course, is the right to assemble, the right to petition the government for grievances. Now, what's going to happen, what has happened, when people have used that and the forces have not liked it? Well, let's start small. with the quote-unquote paramilitary, the police forces, the constabulatory. They have not appreciated it to the point where they have decided to do illegal things like detaining people, arresting people, trumping up charges, if you'll pardon the expression, for people who have decided that they are going to vent their displeasure by saluting, shall we say, by throwing the bird, the middle finger, the international sign of, hey, F you, which we know comes from the old pluck you, from the French and the English battles and archers and whatnot. Anyway, so for the individual citizens here in the United States, it is legal to vent your displeasure at the police, at the government in general, which could be for any number of reasons, whether it's real or not. You are afforded that luxury. It is a right. And, like I said, the local police forces, in some cases, not literally local to me, but local police forces, county, state even, community, they will go ahead and they will arrest people, harass them, give them grief for exercising their First Amendment right, and sometimes need to have a supervisor come down and say, what are you doing? No, cut this guy loose. You're wrong. We'll talk about it in the barracks. We'll give you new training. You're free to go. Sorry for the inconvenience. Sometimes it has to be much more official, and people have to be brought into court to have their day in court, their literal day in court, in order to say, this is what happened. How can I prove it? Sure, I've got video recording, I've got audio recording. I have someone that was recording me from across the street. So here's all of my testimony. Here is the backing proof of it. Officer so-and-so, what say you? Well, they didn't want to identify themselves. They're not legally obligated to. Yeah, but he didn't identify himself when I ordered him to. Is this a ID required state? I don't know, Your Honor. Well, sounds like that should be something you should know, since it's a legal argument that you're trying to make. The answer, by the way, officer, is no, this is not a stop and ID state. You now are wrong, and you're guilty of using your authority incorrectly, and you now owe. At least that's the way it's supposed to be. It's the way it's supposed to work. Unfortunately, there are get-arounds on all of that as well, which is annoying as all. But I'm going to be nice. I'm not going to go ahead and make any kind of rude statements at the moment. But unfortunately, this has happened on too damned many occasions. Now, this is local police forces, even up to the state police forces, which, again, has happened. And you would think that going up the chain, shall we say, from local municipalities up through the state police forces, somebody should actually know the law better, especially state police forces. And unfortunately, they are still just as fallible as the locals, where they don't know, or they are ill-informed. So, what would I expect the National Guards to be knowledgeable on the law? Not any much better, maybe even worse, because their job is not supposed to be, and would typically not be, knowing the law that's being enforced. Which then, of course, is the problem of, well, why are you bringing in these forces in order to protect people's rights and life and limb and property if they don't know what it is that they're supposed to be doing? You know what? That's a really good question, and I would really love to get an answer to that. But as we know full too well, who's going to teach them? Who's going to make sure that they understand about this? When police forces, local police forces, have to go through, well, in some cases, days, maybe even weeks of law training. Most local police forces don't go through, criminal justice college exams for some bizarre reason. Some do, but then again, that's not always the case, and it's typically not the case because most folks don't jump out of college with a degree in law enforcement or criminal justice or even a minor, which is a damn shame because if you are being entrusted with the authority, lethal means you should at the very least know the codes back and forth, one would think. Now, Stephanie had written something a little while ago, and I know, I read it. I didn't get around to it at that point because I was trying to finish off the piece that I was working with. Stephanie, it's written, the D.C. court has ruled against the takeover in D.C. Yes, and I am, for one, exceptionally thrilled about that one. What had happened is, for some, and I'm going to use the expression ungodly reason, the current federal administration has decided that, I should say had decided, that they were going to replace the head of the police force in D.C. with someone of their own choosing. Well, the court case came up about that, and it was, quickly squashed. And the Trump administration decided, well, you know what, maybe it's fine that you go ahead and you keep control, and we'll just not go ahead and take over and kick out the person that's supposed to be in charge. So you can keep your job. Magnanimous of you, you dick. Sorry. Comparing him to Nixon is probably not a great comparison. No, it's definitely not a great comparison. Anyway. So yeah, they decided that they were going to go ahead and they were going to just, leave that be. Fine. It's fine. Unfortunately, however, we do still have groups who are out in forces in various different locations. If I saw the information correctly, a number of these places are just there because they're not necessarily going to be doing very much of anything, but they're flashy in the locations that they are. So they'll be showing off their force and their peoples, but what are they actually going to be doing? Sweet FA, I believe is the expression. And, it's one of those things where full well the performance is the reason. The performance is why it's being done. Not because it's going to be effective, but because it's just to show, to intimidate, to make people wonder, well, if I go ahead and I do anything, somebody's going to be really upset about it. And I don't really want to be bringing up the ire, in my hometown because that's the way that they're going to be doing it. Can't imagine why that might be like that. As mentioned, joining fashionably late and a little bit too close to the topic of what I'm speaking on, UnrenownedTech, has been able to make it. Good morning, Chief.
Hey there. Sorry for my truancy.
It's all right. I'll send the police after you for... Oh, wait, no, that's probably not such a good idea right now. Anyhow, glad you're able to make it. That means that I now get to do this. Crap. That also now means I need to. I had our names correct under us, and now I have to switch them the other way around because
You don't have to
that's the
turn
way
on
that.
your camera for my sake.
Well, no, it's not necessarily for your sake. It's for the sake of the show. I bought the damn webcam. I want to get some use out of it. I mean, outside of the OnlyFans. All right, this is not supposed to be about me right now. I don't go looking that up. Don't. No. Anyway, hi. For anybody that's wondering about that, fine. I'll admit it. Yeah, I'm a fan of getting rammed. Okay, there's a sticker ram for it. Whatever. Anyway, hi.
The only fans I'm part of is being fans of certain YouTubers that make very creative Rust videos. Rust is a video game for the uninitiated.
You know what? Screw you too, man. It's fun. See how it is. Anyway, hi.
What I miss?
Well, you missed the horrible scopes. You missed the opening, and at the moment, we were just mentioning about how the attempted takeover of the police forces of DC was thwarted, which then prompted some sour grapes of, well, we didn't really want to do that anyway. I'm assuming that you heard about that.
I mean, technically, the way DC operates compared to other states, the president literally has authority to go in and say, "This is what's happening," with as far as the forces go.
Yeah. Yeah. However, of course, it was knocked down because, well, the courts basically said, no, what you're doing is not the way it's supposed to be done, so no. In any case, oh, and Lexa says hi.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I literally just sat down. I haven't even opened up YouTube yet or anything.
It's okay. Okay. Nice to know that Lexa says hi to you, and nice to know that I'm appreciated. Fine.
Dude, everybody remembers the comic relief. Especially when they get their head bashed in by a shovel several times, resulting in a concussion, and yet they still manage to save the day in a humorous manner.
Okay, are we talking about Guy on the Protector? Because I don't want to.
No. I was talking about a book that I'm reading.
Oh. Okay. That's fine. Anyway. Okay, so Stephanie is pointing out something which is very germane and something that is worth mentioning at this point. Washington, D.C., for those of you that are outside of the United States who don't understand about this, Washington, D.C. is not a state. Washington, D.C. is as it says in its name, is the District of Columbia. It is effectively its own city-state, separate from the United States, though comprised as part of it. Its purpose was supposed to be basically neutral ground for all of the states to bring in their representation, and everybody was supposed to be just on equal footing. Sort of. It doesn't exactly work out that way, but it's a nice ideal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if it had just been that, and no residence for regular civilians, things like that, right? It was just the meeting grounds of the government, right? With the necessary installations nearby for defense, fire response, EMS, those sorts of things, and no housing in there whatsoever, right? Except for emergency housing, only usable in cases of emergency, right? Then I could completely understand, the government going in doing whatever the hell they want to it. But you have a lot of residential areas in DC. You have a lot of people in there just going about their day, being harassed and everything else. And over the many, many decades, they've slowly been winning rights here and there and here and there. And now you've got capitulation. and not by the residents. But yeah,
Yeah, and like I said, being that Washington, D.C. is supposed to be neutral ground, its overseer portion of government is the federal government, which makes it difficult to get things operated. Because D.C. does not operate like any other state. Its
yeah,
state government, if you will, is Congress, which does not make it easy to get anything done because you gotta shake the hands, you gotta talk with everybody, you gotta beg and plead for everything in a way that no other state ever has to, because the governor's hands are effectively tied. And I say governor, although it's kind of they are and they aren't at the same time, because they definitely do not operate the same as any other state governor.
yeah. And like the Legal Eagle was pointing out, he was showing video from various sections of DC because if I remember, I could be wrong here. If I remember correctly, that's where he lives. Um, he was showing that a lot of DC is just fine. It's not like military at every corner, police at every corner, that kind of thing. Where all the crap going down is where you have the roadblocks where every car is being questioned, everybody's being asked for papers, please, and all that stuff. And again, this isn't a state. They haven't, they are the there are certain rules and there are certain laws where the government can go, we're doing this thing. Now, for Trump to just send in the military, if I remember correctly, I'm running on fumes here. According to Legal Eagle, he's supposed to send his request of what he wants uh, not Homeland Security. He sent in
National Guard.
The National Guard. He's supposed to send that request to the Department of Justice. They're supposed to look at it and go, okay, here's a serious request from the president. Let's see if this has merit. Okay, this has merit. Let's go forward with this, and it goes from there. But I don't know if that happened or not. And from if it got thrown out of court, it sounds like it probably didn't happen that way.
And considering how this regime has operated in the past, the likelihood of them following procedure is, I'm going to be generous and say virtually nil. I mean,
Probably. I mean,
I'd ask anybody to
we
go
can't
ahead.
get ICE to operate, properly. So I mean,
Probably a good idea for us to kind of make mention about that. We're going to take a side trip for just a couple of seconds. Folks also outside of the United States, or maybe some of you have heard about the term ICE. In this case, it's an abbreviation, not an initialization. An initialization would be like JPL, because you have to spell out the letters. In this case, ICE stands for the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. God, I'm getting too damn many things stuck in my head right now. And if I've gotten it wrong, please, by all means, correct me. ICE's purpose, by the terminology, is that they're supposed to be part of the group that watches out for people who are in this country without legally being here. Now that can fall under a couple of different things, not the least of which would be people who have been smuggled here for, one would expect, illegal reasons. I'm I'm trying to steer very clear of a specific term that has to do with people being backed up on a thoroughfare with vehicles. Some people will understand the term that I'm trying very desperately to stay away from because I don't want to get hit with the algorithm gods. Thank you very much. Or people who have infiltrated through the border for no other reason other than they're just trying to make a buck. That happens. There are people who do that. Not gonna sugarcoat it and say that there aren't people who do that, who don't do that. It happens. I mean, let's face it. Even being paid half minimum wages under the table, for some people, you do the conversion to other countries, that actually ends up being a lot of money. For some, in certain areas, depending as to where you send it back to. And, of course, there are people who are just simply here because they're trying to escape bad situations. Folks who have come up through Central America especially, where the political climate is, let's just say, dangerous. And leave it at that. Folks who are looking for asylum. And maybe they misunderstood that you're just supposed to make it to a port of entry and then request asylum, and you're supposed to be granted certain provisions. Now, unfortunately, when I say that some have forgotten that, some in our administration here in the United States have forgotten how that's supposed to operate as well. Sorry, I cut you off there. Just wanted to finish the piece that I was going to go. Go right ahead.
It's absolutely fine. We used to have multiple ports, places where people could come through customs and request asylum, and they would fill out paperwork, their name, any identifying documents from their country that they might have. Um, Especially during wars, a lot of people don't have anything they can bring with them, or it's too dangerous to bring it if they identify like a nationality or a type of religion. Some countries actually require on your national identity card, or your identity card that they issue from their government, to put down what your religious belief system is. Okay, we don't do that in this country. That's why when people say, "Oh, my religious beliefs are being whatever," and it's like bullshit. It's not on your driver's license or your government ID. Don't bullshit me. Um, the But they would put down, their information, where they were from, and so on and so forth, and then their case would be reviewed. And granted, when you flood an area too much, a port of entry too much, you're going to have a backlog, and that does cost money to house, feed, all sorts of, medical and so on. But we used to have a lot more places to do that at, a lot more openings, a lot more buildings, a lot more facilities, and then various um, various political figures. I'm not naming any. I'm not picking out any side or anything like that. Slowly shut them down. You know, everything. If you look through the long-term history of our country, things have been slowly getting shut down piecemeal. So where we're at today does not. Looking back, it's not a surprise of how we got to where we're at. But I'm still surprised at certain things like the voting for Trump twice, especially after the first time, and so on. But then that's just my mind forgetting, the amount of racism in this country that just used to be silent is now outspoken. Um, And the
That
amount of
kills me.
hate that, yeah, the amount of hate that people have for each other is, you know, uh, it's still there. It never really went away. What the internet and instant communications did is just open it up put it on display. Okay, it was always there, and it just became on display.
Now,
Um,
before you go on, I want to make sure that folks understand the internet as a democratization. God, I can get that word out. Um, of ideas is one of the most incredible things the human race has ever done. It is effectively on par with the Gutenberg press. Now, the fact that
and we didn't start it in this country either. The concept of democracy is very old.
yes,
So
yes,
we're not trying to take our country is not trying to take our country should not try to take credit for it.
no, but the democratization of voices is an amazing thing that humanity has done for itself. The good side of it is that peoples who have been otherwise isolated or persecuted, who have been denied the ability of speaking out, have been able to find each other and group themselves together so that they have the ability of protecting themselves. But unfortunately, that also works for groups who have ill will intents. So they've also been able to find each other and join forces and rent U-Hauls in order to get themselves into various places. And well, that's a whole other thing. We can talk about that later. Um, so reminding everybody that it's a double-edged sword, but it is something that allows us as a peoples to see more of what's going on and to be able to better understand, because then we can make our own choices and go, yeah, this group, maybe no for that group, and be able to see it a lot easier, assuming that people actually understood how to understand things.
Politics is dirty, and silencing one group when you're that one group sucks. No matter what it is you have to say, when you realize your group is being silenced and you're part of it, you hate it. Okay, it doesn't matter what you are. And when people are targeted by that, they look for other people who have also been targeted and start to team up. Now, for a very long time, we've been going after racism. We've been going after, relatively recently in our history, bullying, um, and relatively recently, sexism, right? And we've been trying to not only tamp that down and work towards getting rid of it, but we initiated programs and other incentives to try to increase understanding, compassion, get the people who were being oppressed through these that were being oppressed by racism and sexism and all these other isms, um, to help better their lives and bring them up to ours, so to speak. Various programs and such that have been obliterated. Um, the people that were being smothered were the racists and the sexists and the haters and so on. And so they got together. And you know, when you have a fascist like Trump, um, reading from the playbook like Hitler and Hugo Chavez from Venezuela, more recently than Hitler, they're doing appealing to national greatness or nationalism, appealing to the religious groups because the religious groups were not getting they were getting away with less for a while than they were before. They were being called out for things, and they didn't like that, so they lumped into that group. Okay, now you have systematic. Uh, you have the leaders of various parts of the government being systematically pushed out and replaced by those same people that were being repressed. And then to bring more people, more supporters in there. Say what you want about Trump, but he does have a cult of personality. Okay,
How,
he really does.
however, is some question, but I will
Yeah,
admit for that.
and then of course the final part: enemy creation and scapegoating. Who's to blame? Oh, the trans are to blame. The gays are to blame. The Jews are to blame. The atheists are to blame. The black people, the Haitian people, everybody, the people over there, the people over there, everybody's to blame. We're going to tariff everybody, And if anybody complains, they're the enemy. We're going to kick out all these people if they complain. They're the enemy. Um, Both Hitler and Chavez did the same thing, and we see where it got them both. And if you're wondering if I'm reading from a playbook, I'm kind of am. Okay. There was there's a classic novel called "When Fascism Comes to America, It Will Be Wrapped in a Flag and Carrying a Cross." And if that headline bothers you for that book, you might be one of the people or part of the problem, because that novel, okay, essentially predicted Trump. And I put a link to analysis of that by a editor, the edit who the person who talks about this, who reviews this novel and how it predicts Trump's rise, is a self-proclaimed lifelong conservative Republican, ordained minister for over 2 decades, voted for Trump twice, is not a Democrat or a liberal, um, but is an American who remembers. And this is a direct quote: "I am an American who remembers when we fought fascism. If I can see what he's doing, why can't you?" So that links I put in the show notes. We'll add it. But I read that, it just kind of came across my feed out of nowhere, like left field. Just saw it, and I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, I vaguely remember the book. I have a copy of it somewhere. But his analysis is pretty spot on of what's going on and what's happened and everything else. And it's just one of those things that it really, when you read a playbook like Project 2025 and then you see it happening, when you read this novel and you see what's happening, it scares. It scares very easily, that, oh my gosh, this is where we're headed. But if you take that fear and you turn it into something else, talk with your neighbors, talk with your friends, talk with your family, get out there, protest, mail in letters, visit your Congress critters in their office, demand, get an appointment. Don't yell at them. Sit down with your Congress critters and talk to them. Because the moment you start yelling at them, I mean, it's one thing if you're in a crowd in a protest, everybody's yelling and the voice is a cacophony of one voice. But if you're face to face to this person, a one on one conversation, you kind of talk like this. This is what I understand things to be. This is what action you took as shown by this documentation. As one of your constituents, I feel you made a bad decision here. This is not what I would have, this is not what I want from you as my politician. This is my voice. And that hits harder to the politicians than just sending them a nasty email or writing a bad review online, because you took time out of your day and came to their workplace. Yeah,
Yeah,
that.
I gotta. I was trying to find that line very specifically. The line that, well, the title of the piece there. When
By
fascism,
Sinclair Lewis.
when fascism comes wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross, is the title of the
The
page
line
that you've got
is,
over there.
yeah. The line though is by Sinclair Lewis. Okay, he's the one who authored um,
The
it can't happen here by Sinclair Lewis.
right.
The quote from the book is, "When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in a flag and carrying a cross."
Now the thing is, I'm going looking for it. Illinois, yeah, Illinois State.edu has a thing about that, saying that he didn't write it, but it does sound like something he would write. One of the things that's in here that's very close to it, I've got showing up for myself, and I will make sure that this is linked up. Quote: Another version is from Halford E. Luckock in Keeping Life Out of Confusion, 1938. The quote is this, quote, "When and if fascism comes to America, it will not be labeled Made in Germany. It will not be marked with a swastika. It will not even be called fascism. It will be called, of course, Americanism." Never mind whether or not Sinclair Lewis wrote that. Something like this in 1938, when World War I was not too distant a memory, and World War II, the invasions of Germany into the rest of Europe were well into its prime. Oh hell, this,
Hmm.
where we are, was not only predicted, it was warned as an inevitability.
Yeah, of course it was.
And they knew it. They knew it was
Yeah,
happening.
and Sinclair's book was in 1935, 3 years before that. And we even now have professors, university professors, who have fled the United States. Those who specialize and focus on history and you know how I want to say societies, I guess, um, how kingdoms rise and fall, all that fun stuff. Um, there were a bunch of very prominent ones that fled the country. What was it, last year, or no? I feel like
This
it was
year.
last year, but I think it was actually this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Last year.
Just
And
early in it feels like 3 years has gone by already. Not wishful thinking. It just feels
God,
that
it's been
long.
100 years this past 3 weeks, you know? And some of these people, fortunately, have not moved very far away. Some have moved to Canada. And you know what? Thank you, Canada, for being the better family living above this dumpster fire, you know?
A credit to Canada. The smartest thing they ever did was openly state, hey, look, smart people of the U.S., those of you who are, scientists and doctors and educators who feel afraid about what's going on, and rightly so afraid of what's going on in the U.S., come here. We got jobs for you.
Yeah, come on down. You're the next contestant on Canada is Right. I'm sorry, there's some people that don't get that reference, and you are people who have never spent a school day home with ginger ale and a grilled cheese sandwich with a TV. Never
Or
mind. That's,
PB and J.
I mean,
My thing was PB and J when I didn't feel good. It was the only thing that really tasted good when I got sick, because I didn't get sick often.
well and good, unless you need an EpiPen to get that down.
I didn't.
Figures, freak. Anyhow, you're one of those kids that ate it with like caraway seeded
No,
rye bread.
no, 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 no. I liked. We didn't have Wonder Bread. Wonder Bread was, believe it or not, more expensive than just the grocery store stuff.
Oh yeah.
And in my entire family's opinions, like everybody at the dinner table, including myself, we felt that the regular bread that came from the grocery store tasted better than Wonder Bread.
Oh yeah, it
But I
definitely did.
still had to have my crust for the longest time. I had to have my crust cut off.
That's all right. I've actually thought about, getting a thing of Wonder Bread just just once, just to remind myself how bad it really. Then again,
Don't.
yeah.
There's no reason. There's just get the store brand. It'll be better. I
Oh, I
promise.
do.
It'll be better.
I do. I usually.
Here's how much better. My grocery store brand for one loaf of bread is $1.39, and it has more slices of the same thickness when compared to a loaf of Wonder Bread. And the amount of slices more it has is about 10 slices. It is a long loaf of bread.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got a new bread machine because it was cheaper than trying to find a new
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
canister.
That was fantastic, dude.
Yeah,
That's a good one too.
Stephanie's also pointed
But
out. Oh, I'm sorry. Finish off, and then I'll jump over.
no. I was just gonna say, now that we're done sidetracking again.
Yeah, what Stephanie put down over there, I'm pointing in the right direction right now. Under the last Tory, I know we're backtracking just a little bit. Sorry about that. That's the way the show goes sometimes. Under the last Tory government, we had an even worse case as they flatly refused to process anyone. I've got bad news for you because for a while, and I don't know if it's been rescinded, the fascist folks in charge had actually kind of decided that they were just going to stop processing folks at our southern border for a while anyway. Now, I don't know how much was actually still done, but the fact that they had reported that it had been stopped for a little while, first off, completely flies in the face of, well, I was going to say the way that things are done, but I do believe that there's supposed to be some kind of legal thing that folks who are approaching the border and are petitioning for asylum are supposed to be, and I say that from the standpoint of legally supposed to be processed, period, as international treaty and international law. But again, as I've said before, when has this regime ever decided that the laws apply to them? And I may be misunderstanding and misremembering parts of this. So if I'm coming down harder on the government than I need to be because of the actual facts involved, screw you. I don't care. They deserve it. I'm not saying I'm going to not listen to the actual facts and behave accordingly, but at the same time, this administration has proven to everyone with any kind of criticality that they deserve to be put down, shall we say. I don't mean in a euphemism for, suddenly becoming room temperature bodies. I mean put down, as in governments like this should not be allowed to flourish. They should be stamped down. Now that
Our
we're
government
clear.
should be stamped down a bit too. I mean, on Friday, the Federal Appeals Court lifted an injunction that blocked the dismantling of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. For those of you who are not American or not familiar with this particular bureau,
First
I
off,
want you to understand.
before you even go there, those of you who are here in the U.S., if you do not know what this organization is and what they do, that means this organization has been doing things correctly.
Yeah. Their sole task is to protect we, the consumers, from being ripped off by businesses. That's it. That's their task. That is their sole job. And the concept of being ripped off by businesses, um, the problem is so bad that the federal government felt the need at one point to actually create a bureau to handle it. Well, folks, the problem's only gotten worse. And now the bureau that was trying to protect you from worsening problems is going to get dismantled.
Yeah. And I got a problem with
Just
that.
happy thoughts on that. How do people feel about that? Huh? Let's take a poll.
Well, let's see. Finances, weather predictions, space exploration, stamping down things like the arts, the Kennedy Center, which, as an aside there, some large name in entertainment, movies especially, was supposed to be offered the chance to get an award at the Kennedy Center. I refuse to call it anything else. And they decided that, I'd have to accept the award from the fascist in charge. No, it's okay. I'm good. So I don't agree with the dude on a lot of stuff, but that one I can agree with. Thank you. You did something right, at least.
But I mean, we're looking at Medicare cuts. We've been looking at FEMA getting gutted. And we're entering hurricane season, so that's going to be fantastic,
Yeah, and let's also remember, FEMA has already been sidelined from helping out in natural disasters that have been happening already, where state governors who have been rah-rah for the fascists in charge are suddenly being told, yeah, about the flooding that you've got over there and the dead bodies that are kind of washing up on people's front lawns. Yeah. And right about now, there are some people who are just like, "Ooh, that's a movie reference, isn't it?" Yeah, yeah, it is.
We've got more book bans going on in Florida. We've
Book
got
readings, book readings by
book
people
reading
who are dressing up flamboyantly
different.
because they want to, and
Exactly. Um, it's just
Ten Commandment posters that are supposed to be put in every classroom.
um, I mean, it's just it,
It's
it's getting worse. And I have people that I work with who think things are going fantastic because nothing that's happened has truly affected them or their loved ones in any way yet.
not directly yet, and that's really what it comes down to, isn't it? The fact that the effect has not yet hit these people, these bullies. I know you talked about, it's a relatively recent thing that we've been going after specific groups and bullies. Because really, what else is there to call it? It's bullying. These folks, I don't want the gays to have marriage same as me because what does that say about my marriage? It means that you love each other. What difference does it? Well, if these folks can go ahead and get married, how close is that now to go ahead and marry my dog? Sorry, the fuck? What? I mean, I'm making an approximation on things that have been said, and I know it's a stereotype, but there are stereotypes out there for a reason. The people who are, worried about indoctrinating kids. Meanwhile, we've got people who are in very specific areas of government who are convicted for doing various things with kids. What exactly? I have absolutely no idea what it might be. Thank you, YouTube algorithm, for not going ahead and thinking that I'm saying something that I'm not saying. And for anybody that's wondering, I'm sure I can speak for the entirety of the show, of all hosts, past, present, and future. If we found out that somebody was part of our collective circles and they were doing bad things with minors, of any description, we would want them hung up. We would want them prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and probably beyond that. And I don't think that anybody should think otherwise, not because I happen to be myself a dictator wannabe, but because I value children and their lives and their mental well-being more than I do some poor geezer that's in positions of authority. Criminal's a criminal. I hate if that's a hot take for some people, but criminal's a criminal. Speaking of which, by the way, Tech, I don't know if you'd noticed that this past week, the incidence of felony has precipitously dropped over the past week in Washington, D.C., and then went back up again after the president returned from his trip. Oh, you didn't
I
hear
know
about
that
this?
wasn't just.
You didn't hear about that statistic, though?
I realized that wasn't just a shot at the president.
No, because I didn't take off his ear. I'm sorry.
Careful.
Is the microphone still working? I'm just checking.
Yeah, it's still here.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Now, are you talking about his meeting with Putin?
I did make mention
His
about
boyfriend?
that earlier. Yeah, that was.
I'm sorry. The way Trump idolizes Putin and makes puppy eyes at him and everything else really makes me wonder if Trump is gay.
No, but I do believe that he is a bottom.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
He's a drama queen, if nothing else.
Yeah, he gives real queens a bad name.
Yep. Very, very much so. So, with
it's just
yeah, with like I said at the
it's
beginning of the show, man, with all the shit that's been going on over the last week, never mind 3, how the hell do you hit anything? How do you hit any target at this point? Because what in the hell can you even concentrate on, right?
well, I can concentrate on Project 2025, the playbook.
You know,
I
funny
mean,
you should bring that up.
because there is a concept that's introduced about where you hit them with so many things that by them trying to address them all, they can't. And if they focus on one thing to tackle that, the other stuff gets through. And it shows where the weaknesses in our government systems are. It, I've said for a long time, for example, like writers should not be allowed on bills. And for those who don't know, a rider is something that normally won't be passed by the government, but they see a bill that probably will be passed because it's got a lot of support, social support. And so they attach it to that, thinking that, well, if the way a rider works, if that bill gets passed, that rider automatically gets passed. I, for one, have always been against that. Always, since the first moment I learned about it in government class. That should not be allowed. Period. End of, full stop. End of conversation. That should not be allowed. Period. Because if it cannot pass on its own merit, then it should not pass.
Now, there are some people that are going to go ahead and argue, well, if the president has the ability of line item vetoing items, they can just line item veto these items that are riders.
And when it's a president you don't like and doing things that you don't like, and they're not going to do that because it's something you don't like and it's attached to the bill and it gets passed, then you'll agree with me. But I don't. People like that only agree when it's affecting them, not when it's affecting, you know, it if it affects them and they're the okay. So let's give an example. Let's say there's a writer saying that um, Republicans can shoot people. Okay, this is not true. Okay, there's no
This
such
is
bill.
this is what's called a
Right.
hypothetical mind game.
Yes, this is
Okay,
pure hypothetical. Okay, and I mean you can supplement Republican and put in Democrat, liberal, socialist, whatever you want to put in there. You could put any group or any people in there. Let's okay. You say there's a writer, there's a bill that the government is hypothetically trying to pass, and it says one specific group can shoot another group. Okay. Now, the group that's being given permission to shoot the other group is a small group. Let's say out of 330 million people, it's only 1 million people that's given this right. The other 329 million say, we don't want this. And, but the president that's in power is not the person that the 329 people approve of, right? Now, the politicians catering to the 329 million make a bill that that they want to pass that says
everybody gets a pony.
everybody gets a bulletproof vest. Period. Everybody gets it. Everybody gets a free bulletproof vest provided by the government. Okay. Now that bill's set to pass because the other people are hearing about the one that's shoot. And since that one is most likely going to pass, the less scrupulous politicians put the first one as a rider. And since the president is all for that rider, that president never crosses that line out. Now, the more intelligent of us would say, how about just making shooting people illegal and keeping it that way like it is? Right? But that's not how your current government is thinking right now. And that's not how other groups haven't thought in the past. And that's why we're at where we are today. A lot of bad writers, a lot of legal loopholes, a lot of BS that should not exist. I remember in government class in high school that when somebody would hear something about how a certain aspect of the government works, and they were all confused because why would it work that way? And I would just see that look in his face of satisfaction. They've woken up to, or they've raised their awareness to this aspect. It's not all um, gumdrops and candy cane and shit. You know, it's not all sweetness. And I had many long talks with my government teacher, and he always told me, don't ever go into politics. Everybody will hate you because you'd actually be good for people, but
Yeah. Now
that's not what the politicians want.
there's a different way for this kind of writer thing to be the bane of existence. Let's take almost the same hypothetical, and I'll show you where I was thinking of. The hypothetical of Group A is, again, all hypothetical. Group A is allowed to shoot Group B. This is a bill that's going to go through. It would not make it on its own. The writer gets attached to something that is completely nothing to do with anything. Like I said, everybody gets a pony. But we're just going to attach this rider onto it. Everybody gets a pony? Cool. I'm going to sign that, but I'm going to line item veto the thing about people being allowed to be shot. Okay, Mr. President, you did that. Fine. The next piece of legislation that you're looking to back, we will tamp it down. And every other one until you do what it is that we want you to do. Because that's another way that it can be done. You line item that, fine, we'll attach it to the next piece, and the next piece, and the next piece, and we will not have anything go through until you acquiesce to us. Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not going to tell you it's wrong. Backroom deals and stuff like that, that's what happens. Honestly, I've I have long thought that if it happens behind closed doors, it shouldn't happen at all.
Agreed.
There should always be cameras. There should always be press. When our politicians are talking amongst one another, no secrets. I mean, it's one thing if they're talking with military leaders about military things. You can't put that on the air
Right.
because they're you can't. Okay. But when it comes to the laws in the state in the US that affect people in the US, in terms of like, okay, we're going to make this a federal law. People, and it's going to end up being a law that gets posted. So people are going to know about the law no matter what, right? The discussion of that, the pros, the cons, who thinks it's good, who thinks it's bad, as they're talking about, should not be behind closed doors ever. There
Agreed.
should never be a case of a politician ringing up another politician going, "Hey, I'm going to put this bill out there and I want to know that I can get your support on it." That call should never happen. Seriously. What should happen is the politician who's got their bill read up should present it, and then the discussion happens there, right?
Yep.
Or it's presented, the politicians all get a copy, they get to write down their thoughts, their questions, everything else, back at their place, and then they can come in the next day or the next week or whatever to discuss it.
And they need to have time to
Yeah,
do it versus these
exactly.
bill proposals that are as I don't
And politicians have historically gotten more time off, or they have the allocation to take more time off than many other blue collar or white collar jobs here in the US. And people who support that go, "Oh, well, they deal with the most stress." First off, let me remind people, they volunteered for that knowing what's involved. Okay, that's like me volunteering as a firefighter and then going, it's too hot. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to take a month off. Um, Meanwhile, the apartment complex is burning down. Yeah, great job there, volunteer.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and you want to talk about stressful jobs? How about we start off with logging workers? Because apparently the fatal injury rate per 100,000 workers, 111. That's
Mm.
that's not an
Or you want,
inconsequential number.
yeah, you want stressful jobs? Doctors, nurses, therapists, counselors, both adult and child.
Yeah, the list that I've got over
Okay.
here: logging workers, aircraft pilots, and flight engineers. Geez, I can't imagine why. Derrick operators, oil, gas, and mining. Roofers, for crying out loud. Garbage collectors.
How about this one? Nice hot topic here. Police officer or sheriff or deputy. I don't see politicians rushing to volunteer some of their time off to the police officers. So the police officers who were involved in a shooting, one that they didn't want to be a part of in the first place, because let's face it, there's plenty of good cops out there. You know, they pull a person over for having a blinker out. They ask for license, registration, proof of insurance, and the person behind the wheels got several warrants the officer is not aware of. That the person's not going back to jail. They pull a gun, start shooting at the officer. Straight two chest in this, two in the vest, center mass, knocks the officer back. Officer reaction, pulls the gun, has to shoot back. That officer may have never ever had to shoot the gun at a person before, and may have resulted in unaliving that person behind the wheel. Now, granted, self-defense. It's going to get reviewed by an independent body, like most states, but that person's now put on leave until the review comes out showing whether or not their response was warranted. Meantime, they're stewing in the fact that they just ended a human life. Granted, self-defense, but that doesn't that hits a lot of people in a very negative way. A lot of officers are not necessarily prepared for that mentally nor emotionally, and that does harm to the human psyche.
Yeah, I'm looking at a list, and I'm trying to figure out who put this list together. Let's see.
And I've said it
Here it is.
before, I'll say it again. An officer who hasn't a fellow officer who's doing bad things and doesn't report on them should be just as guilty for knowing and not doing. But we also have a lot of officers surrounded by other officers who are doing the right thing. And as more body cam footage gets released nowadays, because more body cams are mandated, we're seeing the good ones at work. We're seeing the situations that they're in. And it's not that violence has gone up or down. Violence, depending on where in the US you take your stats, it fluctuates. Overall, as a whole, not counting for ICE and Homeland Defense or whatever they're called and all that crap, and Border Patrol and all that crap, not taking those people into account, it's gone down. Not everywhere. Some areas have gone up, but as a whole, it's gone down. It's just that we're more aware of it because we have more publicity and more instant access to things. But we're getting more body cam footage of things now. We're getting a lot more body cam footage,
Yeah.
both of officers who are not should not be having their job, and other ones who we wish we had clones of because they're so very good at doing their job the right way.
So what I've got over here, granted it's from 5 years ago at this point, but this is from, I can't read the group name very well at the moment. Based on data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Census of Fatal Occupational Injuries. Now, admittedly, this is kind of going off the deep end, if you will, but I went looking to try to find out where in this list are police officers. In this list, they're number 22. They're number 22.
What's the top? What do you got as a top five? Just out of curiosity.
Top five? Top five, as I already listed them: logging workers, aircraft pilots and flight engineers, derrick operators in oil, gas, and mining, roofers, and garbage collectors. These are the top five for fatalities on the job. Reminding you that we're still going, I'm going to read you off the list, the rest of the list at this point, down to 20, whatever it is. After garbage collectors, iron workers, meaning at this point, these are now, each one is progressively safer from a death perspective. Iron workers, delivery drivers, farmers, firefighting supervisors, power linemen. Now, we see these guys go out after storms and whatnot, and I wouldn't want to be up in a bucket. I don't care if it's, fiberglass. No way. Agricultural workers, crossing guards, crane operators, construction helpers, landscaping supervisors, highway maintenance workers. Gotta imagine that. Cement masons, small engine mechanics, supervisors of mechanics, heavy vehicle mechanics. Geez, I can't imagine why. Grounds maintenance workers, finally, police officers. And after that, I'll just give you the next couple of them really quickly. Maintenance workers, construction workers, mining machine operators.
Now, as somebody who's worked in construction with cranes, by the way, I'm not surprised to see that it's more dangerous to be a rod buster than a crane operator. But and for those who don't know, rod buster is an iron worker. It's a nickname.
There you go.
We all the various different branches of construction have their own nicknames. Anyway, I've seen firsthand what the rod busters do, where they climb, what they do. and the safety equipment involved and everything else. And it's one of those things where I've seen broadbusters actually take off their safety equipment because it was safer for them to do certain things, not technically safe, but it was the equipment was actually being more detrimental for them to complete their job than without it. But but if they kept going and didn't put that safety equipment back on, that's most likely my guess where the worst happened. And they're up high for people who don't know. I mean, they are up high. I've seen rod busters, 10 stories up in the air, unhook their safety equipment to get it out of the way so that it wouldn't make them fall
Nope.
and rely on the safety equipment and then put it back on.
Nope.
As a crane operator, I've been 10 stories up in the air wearing safety equipment just to climb ladders to get to crane.
Nope.
And
You ain't
that
getting
was a
me.
hell of an
You ain't getting
experience.
me. You ain't getting me 4 meters up, man. Don't even get started.
But here's the interesting part. When I was in um, training, because I was part of a union, um, when I was in the hall learning, one of the things they pointed out to us is that when we had jobs where we'd be roadside, our statistical probability of death was exponentially higher than if we were just on a regular dirt site building a building.
Yep.
Because distracted drivers. Put your cell phone down, people.
It's a real thing. And
Yeah,
sadly,
that's why
it
every time
was
I go through a construction zone and I see workers, I'm always going slow and I wave high, but I keep my eyes forward and whatever if they tell me to stop, slow down, whatever, change lanes, I do it. I do it well in advance.
yeah, because it's a potential human life. I don't want to be responsible for that. And
Yep, and they showed us videos that you'll never see on YouTube ever,
no,
or most places on the internet, that would make most people reconsider getting in the car with their cell phones on their dashboard.
if it's anything like the stuff that I had to see for pumpkin patrol training, yeah, that I will never forget. Stephanie had also pointed out something like 90% of humans have an inhibition against taking a human life and do suffer trauma if they do that. I would argue that the number is rephrasing. I would argue that I believe the number to be higher than that. I hope. I would really like to believe that more than 90% of the population would not want to take a human life, not take another human life. However, that's me. I'm basing this purely on my feels, and I know that there are various different things that would come into play, not the least of which would be, oh, but what's the population of Catholics compared to the hardcore ones who are the whole, birth everything and everything is a life regardless of when it never mind. You see where I'm going on that.
And yet we don't see the government looking at these jobs and saying, oh, well, these things that help them are good. These things that protect them are good. These things that extend their chance at surviving are good. The Consumer Federal Protection Bureau doesn't just protect people from a bad TV. It protects the people who rely on safety equipment. It protects them on their, not just the safety equipment, but the equipment in general, right? And so on.
Because
And
caveat emptor is a wonderful expression, but when it ends up killing people, caveat emptor ain't nearly enough.
right. So that's how that ties into the whole that bureau getting gutted. Uh, it, it it's just it and they're taking money and building more prisons. That doesn't protect people.
No. Fashionably late and understandable with very, very good reason, and don't worry too much about it all. IO Cloud is able to join us at the very tail end, if you'll excuse the expression. Glad you're able to make it, hon. How you holding up?
I'm holding up fine. My friend is having ups and downs and has hit a whole bunch of, oh, I used to do this with her. Oh, I used to do this with her.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine lost his beloved wife this week, and we've been helping out as much as possible. Or at least trying to.
I know a little something about that from the inside, of course. But
yeah, the exact same look that you give, he's been giving.
Yeah. So obviously we've had a lot of time to talk through stuff. Actually, believe it or not, you'd be happy to know I held down the fort for half hour, give or take, without tech. So that worked out well.
What was the subject in a nutshell? Bunkers, survival of
No, the basic point of it all was that there's just been so many things, so much over the last, we'll call it a week, but technically it could even stretch however far back you want to go at this point, because it's just been thing after thing after thing after thing. That how the hell do you even cope with it all? We hit on a couple of pieces. We hit on the National Guards being called up, that the DC police head of the police force being ousted and then not, and ICE trying to make everything into papers, please, and various government agencies being whittled away at and funding replaced, or the border patrol and people coming through for at ports of entry for asylum and being turned away, or not being processed, or being processed wrong. Or is there, I mean, being that we're basically at the end of it all, whatever piece that you want to go ahead and just vent for a couple of minutes, I've been more than happy to just give you the floor, or not. I mean, you've had a full day. So if you want to hit,
had
feel free.
I've had over a full day. I was with our friend yesterday, and yes, letting him talk is about the best thing that can be done at the moment. The one thing that I can say is, if this had been within the Obama administration, if any of this had happened within the Obama administration, news media would have been all over it like white on rice, saying that this is wrong, this is bad, how dare the government overreach, how dare the government fire people, how dare, how dare, how dare. But because this is Taco, they want to hide all of his deficits and everything. And it's not a bad thing for all this to be doing, because they're bringing law and order to the nation's capital. They're bringing law and order to Los Angeles. They're bringing law and... Seriously, if it had been during Obama's term or even Biden's term, it would have been all over the news. It would have been, how dare he? The president would have been indicted and removed. Not just indicted and given a slap on the wrist, indicted and removed. I'm really happy with what Gavin Newsom is trying to do for California. I don't think he's going as far as he should, but if the general election that happens in November goes the way that he's hoping it goes, it's going to be fun politics for the midterms. I'm really glad I was able to make it. I wanted to hear your voice and see you because your advice to me on Thursday was instrumental. It was really, really good. And that writing that you showed me was it, it allowed me to get into the head of a man who has lost the woman that he loved. And that's able to help my friend. I'm supposed to be going back to see him tomorrow and Monday, possibly Wednesday and Thursday, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It depends. There's still been no discussion of when her memorial is or anything.
The piece that I specifically wrote you, I did that in Second Life, didn't I?
You shared it with me in Second Life, and
Yeah.
yeah,
The reason why I ask is because there was a specific piece that I wrote that I
you wrote it in one of your fandoms, which is fine. You
that
wrote it
wasn't
from your character.
that wasn't the
You
piece.
wrote it. Actually, it was because it was from that one fandom, and the way that last chapter, that last part, it got into the mind of a man that lost the woman he loved. But because you did it in fandom, you were able to pull yourself out and do it as a third person type, but it still let us take a look inside of your head as to this is what's going on. This is how I feel or how I felt and how devastated I feel. And I realize that's how my friend is feeling right now. I've seen that in that writing. Thank you.
The
I really
no, you're welcome. Obviously, it was a fictionalized account in some ways. In other ways, obviously not. But the piece in particular that I had given you was about marriage. That I forget how the wording of it was, but just that.
Oh, I have that. I pulled it out of Second Life.
Would you mind?
um if I can find the actual wording.
The setup of it was that the
Oh, yes, I asked you whether you thought your marriage was over. You said, "For me, it's still very much real. I still wear both our rings. Never been off my person since her passing. For me, I am, as I always say, still in love with her. Married is of the heart. The paperwork and proclamations are just someone else's record keeping." You know, that helped. But the writing that you showed me, the story, that, yeah. I was pretty close there a couple years ago when my husband was in the hospital with his cabbage. He had a quad cabbage. That means 4 bypasses. And I was scared and lost, and I didn't know what to do. All my routines were gone, and it took 6 months to get them back.
I'm glad I was able to help.
And because you helped me, I can help him. And I'm going to be there whenever he calls. I'm an hour away by car because I'm terrified of driving the highways. If I could do the highways, I'm only half an hour. We're talking about we're talking about a man who helped engineer and design these roads too. So he laughs at some of the stuff that goes on and how dangerous they are, and he understands. He's like, "Yes, take your time getting to me. I don't mind." But just I see in him when he's talking about her the same thing I see in you when you talk about Fujin. And I understand a bit of the pain and a bit of the despair and the if I only. Honestly, you can't live with the if onlys. You did what you knew at the time. And he did what he knew at the time. Because he's going back, if I'd only called 911 the night before, but then she would have died in the hospital instead of at home with her cat and her husband beside her. It's actually a very limited luxury nowadays to be able to die at home.
Glad you were able to do what you could.
I will do whatever he asks me to do. Because the amount of people that are willing and able to step up, not as many as there should be. Just because people have lives and they have to take care of others. And I've got 4 days free next week. I've said these are your days.
Being where we are, I'm going to end us there with just a very simple, quick statement to close it all. That's what people in a real society do. They care for each other. We want that back. Like I said, nice and simple and just short. Thank you all for being able to be with us. We hope that you found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives and didn't get sick and tired of having me all alone at the beginning of the show. And you got something to think about for the week ahead. Io, again, glad I was able to help in some small fashion. You try to take care of yourself, and you know full well if we can help you out again, just let us know.
Yep.
Tech, thank you. Glad you were able to make it. You, now that you've woken yourself up enough, now you can get back to sleep. Don't you do this to me. Don't you do this to me now.
I think he's snoring.
Tech,
I'm here.
don't you make me call you. Oh, shit, you'd probably have your phone on silent at this point, too, wouldn't you? All right, whatever.
I have it on vibrate in my pocket. You can call me as many times as you want.
You know, I was about to say, you don't pay me enough for that, but my Amazon gift card says otherwise. Actually, believe it or not, the computer that I'm working with right now, which is the donated Ryzen machine, I did get replacement sticks of memory, by the way. So it's got 2 at 16 gig sticks. I used the last of the gift card money that you'd given me. And because it was originally, I was originally saving it so I could get that replacement container for my bread machine. It was cheaper for me to just get a whole brand new one over at the shop, literally, because $15 instead of a minimum 30 for a thing from the gift card, which would have been free, but you know, whatever. The sticks of RAM that I ordered, it still was 11 cents over what I had in the gift cards.
I'll send you a penny and a dime.
They ate the 11 cents.
Oh, cool.
So I guess it really wasn't worth the processing at that point, because it would have cost them, what, 35 cents to process? Anyway,
Jeez.
thank you. And in seriousness, you have a safe week, I hope, man.
I'll try. To our listeners and anybody who actually comes across this, just as a final warning, go on Wikipedia and look up "First They Came." It's not a Kama Sutra thing, okay? It's a German poem, okay? A post-war confessional by a German Lutheran pastor. And it's it's the one that a lot of people say. A lot of people either misquote or they quote the abbreviated version of it. First, it came from the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist, and so on. I would recommend reading it, the full thing, and read up the origin of it and the role and everything. Please. That's it.
Thanks, man. And for those of you that were able to be with us tonight, thank you very much. Lexa, thank you. And I hope you understand I was just teasing you. And of course, Stephanie, thank you ever so much. And Stephanie did specifically say, people do not know how to help, so keep away, which is painful to the bereaved. It's true. It's tough. And even now, having gone through 20 years later, I couldn't tell you all of what happened at the time because I am still trying to put my mind back together again, even in just little bits and pieces here and there. Did I get literal brain damage from trauma? Undeniably. But you do what you can, I suppose. The best you can. In the meantime, we will be back again next week. All things considered. There will be the weekend of September 20th that we will not be having a show. I'm letting you know about that now. I'm making plans. I have a couple of things I still have to finalize, just actually putting in the time at work for that. But I'll be out of town that weekend. So we'll make sure that you guys know about that ahead of time, just to be on the safe side. Other than that, just thank you. We'll have all the information in the show notes shortly. And of course, if you'd like to be in touch with us, quickest and easiest way is probably over on Discord, but you can find us on a couple of different social medias, of course, BlueSky being probably one of the best. Other than that, as always, just take care of yourselves and know that we will do our best for you. So, as always, until the next time we're together, I wish you the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well, and of course, my lady, as was mentioned, like I said, 20 years later, you should be 55. Gorgeous. And I am still in love. Matane Fujin. I love you. I miss you. You dream of me. Till the next time we're together, everyone. As always, good night.